I guess we can probably get started. I'll turn my camera off in a couple minutes to prevent distractions. Hi, I'm Marie. I'm a coordinator for Somerville Sunrise Youth, and we're having a short conversation with Mary Casesso, who's running for mayor in the 2021 municipal elections. We're going to be asking a few fundamental questions relating to Sunrise's mission, which is climate justice. And with the exception of the intro, there will be 3 minutes per question. We'll warn you visually and in the chat at 30 seconds remaining. And if you're speaking when time is up, the host will mute you. The questions will fall in the categories energy, infrastructure, racial justice, and education. We'd appreciate it if you didn't share the questions to keep things fair for all candidates.
Of course.
All right, so my name is Emily. I'm also a coordinator, and I'm just going to be asking the questions. So first, we would like you to introduce yourself, so share your pronouns, your past leadership experience, what you've done to address climate issues in the past, and why you're running for office. So that's 4 minutes.
Thank you, Emily. Hi, everyone. I'm Mary Casesso. I shared my pronouns on my name, she, her, hers. And I appreciate you asking. I grew up in Somerville. Some of you may have heard my story. I grew up in East Somerville, and I lived in a 5-room apartment in a 3-family home that my grandmother owned. We were tenants for a long time, and she gave us really affordable rent. So that's one of the reasons affordable housing has always been so important to me, and why for 30 years I've been on the Housing Trust Fund. We were active in the community growing up. My mother, her sisters. We knew, just like Somerville is now, neighborhood groups, community groups, focus groups like SSY were really important to good government. And so we were involved in causes like opposing the elevated structure of I-93, working for farm workers for better wages, better benefits, and even to establish a neighborhood health center, because in East Somerville, there was not one pediatrician, even though there was a high population of kids in that neighborhood. So it was a way we grew up. Education is another big issue for me. I was the first in my family to attend college and then graduate school. It changed my life, and it also resulted in all of the other members of my family, older, including my mother, going back to school at some point. Finally, I studied public administration with the intention of working in the public sector. So I worked for the city of Somerville early on in my career, did a lot of transformational work at the senior center, and for the city of Somerville, catching up their books, which were 3 years behind, and transforming the office so that would never happen again, and that we increased our bond rating and was able to build a new technical trade school. Then I worked for Governor Dukakis in housing. I worked as the dean at Harvard for 20 years, providing oral health care in the community, and back to government, Health and Human Services for Deval Patrick, and the state's agency that deals with individuals with disability, safety net services for children, youth, and family. So there's been a consistent pattern thread. In my most recent position, which I left a month ago at Cambridge Health Alliance, I worked on bringing health equity into the community, having school-based teen health centers, doing free oral health care, having peer recovery coaches in emergency rooms, because that's what families were asking us for. All of those reasons are important for my bid as mayor, because my values have driven the work I do: welcoming, racial equity, kindness, that coupled with the 3 themes and more that I tell you about, and my huge network from my vast experiences, I think would be perfect for integrating all of the important issues in Somerville with the network that I have built over many decades.
All right, thank you. So the next question is in the category of energy. So you'll have 3 minutes to answer it.
Okay.
How do you plan to transition Somerville to an electric 100% renewable energy grid? And if you do plan to do so, by what year?
I think it is really important for us to align incentives in every key area um, to change behavior and to make it possible for people on limited or fixed incomes to make those changes. So yes, I intend to do that. I think we have to have programs to incentivize solar panels, to change the Mass Save program that continues to have gas outlets. So for property owners that live in a two-family and offer affordable rent on the first floor, we should have programs that make it possible for these changes to be made. I even think about changing the tree canopy program so that it's an opt-out, not opt-in, because a lot of people don't take advantage of the ability to have trees. So I want to align the incentives to achieve the behavior and make it possible for it to be affordable to people that need help.
All right. Our next question is in the category of infrastructure. So many decisions about public transportation are made at the state level. How do you believe Somerville and the Somerville government should engage with public transit? So that's 3 minutes as well.
Yes, thank you. I mentioned the vast network from the positions that I have held. I have always worked regularly with the federal, state delegation. I have worked with the regional Metro North mayors building consortiums, because a lot of the issues that we have to tackle, we should work on in Somerville, but also regionally. It's not as if Somerville does the best job possible on climate justice, we're okay. Our neighbors in all directions have to be participating. So I'm very familiar with working within the federal and state laws, working with all of our delegation, not-for-profits. I work a lot on building continuums, because lots of times there are really holes in the work that we need to get done. So I have been very effective with all the networks I have, building a continuum and us all pulling in the same direction. I welcome that opportunity to bring that same successful model to the role of mayor that I have used my entire career.
So continuing in the category of transportation. So this is a yes or no question. Do you intend to make the T free for Somerville residents?
I was reading in the Globe today about, and I think it's Michelle Wu who have talked about free tea. And I think that would incentivize folks using public transportation. So I think that is worth looking at. I worry about public transportation financing overall, as I do about the post office. And I wonder how we keep these entities that are really important to us operating, but still make sure that there is socio and economic, racial justice, et cetera, providing support. I often talk about even for food justice programs I've started, if a person can't get the free food, it's the same as not having a successful program. So transportation, and it's been huge at Cambridge Health Alliance, we've written many grants that enabled us to provide free transportation for getting vaccinations, testing in the past, going to our food markets, et cetera. So I know the difference it makes when you offer free transportation. I would want to look at the issues related to if someone can well afford to pay, should they, or would they take public transportation if it were free? So
okay. All right, so we're going to move to the third category, which is racial justice and social issues. So 3 minutes to answer this question. How do you view the future of policing in Somerville, and how have you engaged with the issue previously?
Thank you. I feel since the inception of Proposition 2.5 in Somerville that we have eliminated a lot of very important human infrastructure services and even infrastructure services in our buildings that make it more challenging with our determination to have stay on track for a 2050 climate forward plan. And so I think we need to reinvest and refinance certain services. Social services in particular. I talk a lot about health equity, and I have a lot of experience with mental health and substance use treatment. I think that, like the Cahoots program out in Oregon, but a program that Cambridge started recently called HEART, and I think the city of Lynn has a new acronym for the program, but the models are all somewhat similar, where, and I've done a lot of training for community health workers or social workers, mental health first aid workers. That's the response team that we need to answer mental health emergencies, substance use emergencies, domestic violence, unhoused people, that trained to de-escalate, not to see a uniform and weapon that escalate and trigger mental health. And these are comorbidity issues. So I am very committed to refunding social services in our schools, in public health infrastructure, to work hand in glove with the police. And I know that the data has shown significant improvements in responses.
Okay. So we're going to continue on the topic of racial justice and social issues. So, as you know, Somerville is a sanctuary city.
Yes.
How will you integrate new immigrants, particularly undocumented families, into the community and especially into Somerville public schools?
Thank you. Let me say that the designation as sanctuary city was established when I was young, working in East Somerville with a alderman from Ward 1 at the time, Sal Albano, who later became a state senator. A lot of us fought for that commitment to a welcoming, inclusive, diverse community. And my work over my many decades in social services and administration and finance have focused on exactly that. At Cambridge Health Alliance, one of my priority areas was responding to the challenges of the Trump administration related to immigration, and state delegations saying, we have anecdotal stories, what we really need is data. So I raised funds and funded immigration research that ended up in STAT and well-known throughout the country, that responded to and documented the contributions immigrants have made in the United States, and the contributions they've made to Medicaid and Medicare, in complete contrast to what the previous president was saying. So we had programs to work with our immigrants. I work closely with Alex Peary, coordinating services. It was services for food, for health, to paying for assistance to make certain that people who were either too afraid to use the benefits they were entitled to, we navigated and worked with them for comfort level. And if they were not eligible, that we worked side by side with them to make sure they got those benefits, especially as it relates to trauma experiences. So I'm very comfortable and familiar and have a broad network within the city, within the region, but also at the state, to keep advancing the help that are essential workers. I know I'm going to run out of time, but I'd like to talk at some point about the pandemic and the disparities that we've always known, but became more aware to so many others.
Okay, so we're going to move on to our last topic, which is education. So we are wondering if you would consider adapting the Somerville High School vocational program to include programs that are green job training. So like solar panel installation and adapting buildings to an infrastructure to be more sustainable.
That is exciting and absolutely has to happen. And, there are great internship programs currently at the technical trade school. I know Bent Electricity has always done a program. I know CHA did a program for community health workers. But I think even in the new innovation economy, we should be doing exactly that, incentivizing the training in these areas, and not just for the students, I think as well for the parents. To give them more opportunities in career trainings. There are successful nonprofits like Justice Start who have done so well in certain areas. I think that could be a model. We know that climate change, just like the pandemic, disproportionately affects disadvantaged groups. And that's how I grew up, right beside I-93. And my mother had cancer as a result of those small dust particles. We need to make certain we are addressing those issues, but concurrently providing good jobs, good education, all the things that changed my life growing up so poor, including home equity housing programs that give people the ability, using the land trust and taking advantage of all the programs I'm well aware that the state and from the Affordable Housing Trust to do more for people. And I want to add workforce housing too, because as I'm campaigning around the city of Somerville, I'm hearing from a lot of people that are educators, that are firefighters, that work in IT, that can't afford to live in Somerville now too.
All right, thank you. So the last question we have is, how can public schools prepare students for their future in a world impacted by climate change?
Well, first of all, I think we need curriculum that really talks about real issues we are dealing with, all the issues of the pandemic, health inequities. We do not have adequate public health infrastructure. We are seeing a surge again, and we know from all the science that there'll be more infectious disease going forward. These are the things we need to be teaching at all levels, age-appropriate topics, so we grow up knowing what our responsibilities are related to addressing the challenges and making it a stronger and better world. For people like myself, older, I worry about my daughter and her family if we're not doing more, if we're not challenging and pushing ourselves. But I think we have to have more opt-out programs. We need to incentivize, we need to align the incentives. And if we're teaching kids at a really young age, they will grow up doing their share and wanting to be part of the new economy and making it a safer and better world. So, that helps us build a strong social fabric. The values I talked to you about that would transcend my administration of kindness, respect, caring about others in community, that's where you start at school and start earlier. Universal pre-K for all, and free transportation for families that can't get their kids there. Yes, there might be a spot, but if they can't get them there, that we're not providing the equal opportunity in the incentive. When kids are kept at home longer, third grade is a key year in your reading attainment in your long-term success in school. These are all measures we need to look at and make sure we're achieving. I can't tell when I'm going over, and I apologize if my answers are longer than what you suggested.
No, you haven't gone over at all. So
oh, okay.
I think that was our last question. So thank you very much